So Liz asked us to go for the big questions. And so I'm doing this here. What's wrong with the marketization cum democratization paradigm? And don't worry, I will break that down into more digestible elements in the end. In this presentation, I will focus on what I see as some serious deficiencies in the analytical and normative framework that has been applied to China's political economy and the social sciences during the past 3 decades. In examining China's trajectory, many social scientists have relied on assumptions, concepts, models, and theories that seem to have been confirmed by the triumph of Western liberal democracies and market economies over communist regimes at the end of the last century. Market liberalization came to be seen as the only sensible way to coordinate economic exchanges and resource allocation. Deregulation and privatization were recommended as the only way out of underdevelopment and of economic stagnation. In the political realm, democratization came to be seen as the superior and universally applicable solution to the challenges of political accountability, stability, and adaptability. In short, to most Western social scientists, marketization and democratization have served as the master narrative for explaining the success or the failure of nations in modernization. The package of assumptions and concepts that are at the heart of the marketization and democratization agenda constitute what I call the Mardem paradigm here. Taking the experience of Western market economies and liberal democracies as the benchmark has proven costly. Many economists and political scientists have tended to dismiss institutional and policy innovations in other political economies, such as China, as irregularities, as deviations, or simply dead ends. They have not given very serious thought to the possibility that China may represent a political economy that is big and successful enough to pursue a trajectory different from what we expect in the light of our own rather constricted analytical framework. Let me put it in a very provocative way. I want to provoke some response. It has become, in my view, increasingly problematic to try to shoehorn China into the shop-worn categories of Cold War regime types. We need a new approach. China today stands as a powerful red swan challenge to the social sciences. This is a play of words on a major recent work by Nassim Taleb, The Black Swan, that raises basic questions about how the social sciences gain or fail to gain new insights. Taleb holds that the unpredicted, deviant, surprising cases that challenge shared assumptions and that have a huge impact on our assessment of how the world works are much more important for gaining valid insights about the world than those cases that confirm our expectations. The economic crisis we are currently going through is such a black swan, huge impact, unpredicted, underestimated, not yet understood, and not yet mastered. And I suggest to apply Taleb's approach also to the rise of China. The political resilience of the Communist Party state, in combination with a rapidly expanding, internationally competitive economy, represents a significant, deviant, and unpredicted case with a huge impact, not only on the global distribution of political and economic power, but also on the global debate about methods and models of development. Therefore, I call China's rise a red swan that challenges basic, widely shared assumptions and models of the social sciences. In my following remarks, I will emphasize the significant discrepancies that have become manifest between on the one hand, what the Mardem paradigm makes us focus on here on the left-hand side, and on the other hand, what we actually find in China. And there are many surprises that are increasingly brought to light by current developments. Let's take a look at the political system first. China has not taken the road anticipated by most Western social scientists and desired by Western publics. Observers have been predicting the imminent demise of the Chinese political system since the death of Mao Zedong more than 30 years ago. Yet all these scenarios of collapse, they have collapsed themselves since then. While these were unpleasant misjudgments, it has a deeper epistemological reason. Conventional political science models of regime transitions are constructed around dichotomies stemming from the Cold War period, from dictatorship to democracy, from plan to market. And these models assign almost no adaptability to Communist Party states. Communist systems are judged to be incapable of continuous improvements in administrative organization, economic coordination, technological innovation, and international competitiveness. Therefore, the Mardem perspective makes us focus on dysfunctional communist institutions and sprouts of democracy. A lot of research energy has gone into identifying deficiencies attached to hierarchical decision-making in China, or into finding evidence for lethal institutional decline in the party state. Another big stream of research that has received rather generous funding from Western foundations and from Western governments has focused on finding or supporting the sprouts of Chinese democracy in village elections and in societal organizations. However, this focus has not proven useful in understanding the complex dynamics of institutional and policy innovation in China during the last 3 decades. Instead of a rigid party state, recent policy-oriented research has found evidence of highly adaptive modes of governance in China. Instead of command hierarchies, we find an increasing role of consultative law in policy making, and instead of seeing village elections as preparing the ground for a systemic transition to democracy, more skeptical researchers interpret these mechanisms as attempts at improving basic level accountability, but without relinquishing Communist Party control. Let's turn to the equally or even more striking realm of political economy. In the Western public and also in the academic debate, China's rise has regularly been explained in accordance with the marketization and privatization agenda that has swept the globe from the 1980s on. China's economic growth story was framed as the result of pushing back dysfunctional state interference, abolishing state planning, unleashing the power of free markets, and privatizing China's economy. Academic debates came to be concentrated on market competition, market regulation, private entrepreneurship, private property rights, and contract rights. Yet this focus on a convergence with market principles has produced fundamental flaws. I want to emphasize here one core misunderstanding that has been caused by mechanically applying the marketization paradigm to China, and it sheds light on a rather large and striking blind spot that results from the Mardem framework. It is a sweeping mainstream judgment taken for granted among economists and political scientists without further questioning that a wholesale demise of the plan has taken place in China. Over the last 3 years, I've taken a very close look at China's efforts at strategic policy coordination, long-term, cross-sectoral policy coordination in its contemporary, historical, and comparative dimensions. I've conducted series of interviews with planning officials and economic officials in China on that. And I can state quite simply that there has never been a wholesale demise of planning in China. Planning is alive and kicking. Of course, it is now called guihua instead of jihua, and it is planning with and for markets, not socialist planning against markets. Doubtless, many typical features of socialist industrial resource management have been dismantled, but the very essence of state development planning, that is anticipatory, targeted, cross-sectoral coordination of public policy, has even been reinvigorated over the last 1.5 decades. China still is a very ambitious planning polity that is committed to realigning state power with domestic and global market trends and from a long-term perspective. And this planning ambition can point to certain significant achievements over the past 2 decades, and everybody can witness this in China, most notably in the simultaneous development of national infrastructure, integrated infrastructure planning, which is really huge. It's harbors, it's highways, it's railroads, it's even urban planning. It's really an integrated approach to large-scale infrastructure planning. Not many political economists could even dare to think to do that. And it's, again, it can be detected also in human resources development and in technology planning, which are all indispensable, undisputed foundations of economic modernization: infrastructure, human resources, technology. Though market coordination has gained considerable ground in China's economy, the state still controls much more than just the commanding heights, the Mingmai, through public property rights, administrative interference, and Communist Party supervision of senior managers. In the context of recent stabilization and stimulus policies, the state-controlled parts of China's economy have made new advances. The Guojin Mintui discussion is this. Here we find features of China's political economy that shape distinctive political economic dynamics that are not only different from Western market economies, but also very different from the modes of state guidance that we had seen in Japan or in South Korea. That's what I would hold. Let's turn to the basic analytical perspective, and that's actually something that I want to go at today. Over the past 3 decades, the Mardem paradigm has directed our focus to good governance as defined by the Western experience. The social sciences and international organizations have taken a predefined set of norms and institutions, including property rights, the rule of law, etc., as the benchmark for judging the developmental potential of political economies. that China's rise is based on institutional foundations, governance mechanisms, and policy solutions that in many aspects run counter to the Mardem paradigm is a major challenge to this master narrative. The tension is really about quite fundamental issues. The Mardem paradigm rests on an understanding of governance that sees predictable, transparent regulation of economic and political activities as essential. But Chinese policymakers have pursued their growth agenda through a volatile, discretionary, and quite aggressive push and seize approach to policymaking. This policy style is particularly prevalent in local level policymaking, but importantly, the Chinese approach is directed towards transformative goals. And this is very, very different from the protective modes of governance that prevail in most advanced or so-called mature political economies. Whether the PRC's institutional and policy solutions that have been produced during the past 3 decades turn out to be transitional remains an open question. But in any case, they have served the Communist Party's management of economic change remarkably well so far. And for that reason alone, they deserve our serious attention as social scientists. What if, a big what if China is in fact pursuing a unique path and, due to its size, history, and growth, introducing important unconventional, non-Western techniques to the repertoire of governance in the 21st century? And what if this 21st century requires quite different approaches to governance than the 19th and 20th century? I think these are important what-ifs here. For my concluding thoughts, please take a look at this bonbon, which, where is it? I hope it comes up. Here it is. Which was coined by Albert Hahn, a maverick German-American banker several decades ago. There's a deep, deep truth in that here. Working with social science models is like searching for Easter eggs. You only find what you have hidden yourself, what you yourself have hidden beforehand. It's humorous, but there's a deep truth in that, and it's quite challenging if you think it through. This was a guy actually who invented deficit spending 15 years before the general theory was published by Keynes, and later on he actually stepped back from that and said it was all, what he said and what Keynes said is all wrong. He's really a maverick kind of guy, but made millions even in the worst times of the stock market. Quite a remarkable banker, this guy. I'm soon finished. So here, this bonbon does not just fit our present season, that's clear, but it points to a general epistemological problem in the social sciences, and it also applies to the Mardem paradigm. What is the way out of this predicament? We want to be constructive here. How can we pursue a less constricted, more open perspective to understanding China's unconventional development trajectory? I'd like to suggest to turn our focus away from predefined norms, institutions, and expectations that are at the heart of the Mardem paradigm. Instead, we should turn our full curiosity to unusual governance processes that are not explained by existing models and that challenge our preconceptions. How do Chinese policymakers try to solve problems? Are they really using the same approaches that we pretend to know from our previous experience and from other contexts? Or do we find surprising ways of policy interaction and innovation that go beyond our previous observations and provide new lessons? In short, it is imperative to refrain consciously from all hidden or implicit teleological assumptions about China. Instead, we should view China's development as a large-scale process of search and discovery, very different from previous experiences, full of surprises and new lessons without an ending that we could pretend to know today. Thank you.